Scott, shifting the gear to the conflict in Ukraine, we had Steve Witkoff together with Jared Kushner going to Russia, talking with Vladimir Putin, Ushakov, and Kirill Dmitriev. And Lavrov was not there. He went to China, if I'm not mistaken. He was, you know, talking with Chinese because Rubio, after all, is not part of these sort of talks. Do you think that this time around the meeting was somehow different? Because this time around we see Kushner being part of the team going to Russia. For 5 hours they were talking to each other. What is the position? What are we heading with the new sort of talks between the United States and Russians?
Well, I think first things are clear that Europe's out of the picture. They don't count anymore. They're done. And that means there's no job for Marco Rubio. None. His job was to try and tie all these diplomatic strings together, have continuity of policy, et cetera. That's over. I think there's a recognition that Russia has won this war and that Ukraine is now being told you can do it the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is just to accept that Russia's won and we can get this thing done. Or the hard way is Russia's going to kill you all. Donald Trump has come out and said there won't be Ukraine left if you continue to do this. And that seems to be the position that's been taken. Why? Because the Trump policy, there's a strategic vision of the world that has the United States disentangling itself from, these legacy adventures in Europe, NATO, the NATO adventure. We have to expand NATO, but we need an enemy called Russia. I think that Trump's done with that. The Middle East, he's, whether he's going to succeed or not, he wants to bring an end to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I believe he's sincere in that goal. Whether or not he can actually pull it off, we don't know. But he doesn't want to be caught in, yet another, decade-long war that costs trillions that we don't win. We don't get it over with. He's done. In the Pacific, you see, there's less talk about confronting China over Taiwan and more talk about how we can have normal economic relations with China. Why? Because the United States is focused on falling in on Fortress America, the Western Hemisphere, Monroe Doctrine 2.0. And in order to do that, there's things that we have to do. Venezuela, Honduras, put our thumb on the scale there, and other stupidity of this nature. But in order for us to focus on this, we can't be bogged down in conflicts. And so the Trump administration, I believe, I can't say the Trump administration because there appears to be lots of dissenting voices. But Trump has decided that the way forward is literally he's talking the language that Vladimir Putin was talking in December of 2021, a new European security framework. If you read that 28-point peace plan, get out of the Ukrainian garbage that Keith Kellogg and Marco Rubio had thrown in there, just get into the nuts and bolts. They're talking about, working out with Poland, to calm things down, with the Baltic states, how to de-escalate there, how to create spheres of influence and interest that, don't, result in war, how to get NATO, to calm down, and Russia says, once that happens, we don't have any interest in war. That, and then the potential of major economic engagement with Russia, the best security guarantee that can exist for the United States and Europe when it comes to Russia is meaningful economic engagement with Russia, where there are mutually beneficial outcomes. And I think this is the tack that Donald Trump has taken, which is why you have Steve Witkoff there. His primary counterpoint is Kirill Dmitriev. Kushner's come in, again, more economic minded. You saw how where his mind was in the Middle East. He's there with Ushakov. Lavrov's not there. Rubio's not there because they are not trying to solve this war. The war will solve itself. It is solving itself. As we speak, Ukrainians are being butchered on the battlefield. Total collapse of the Ukrainian military. The collapse that's been predicted. Now, the Russians, are advancing. I think yesterday, in some places, 19 kilometers, unheard of. Total collapse is the Zaporozhye front. If Russia rolls up that front, There's nothing. Now we're talking about Russia can cross the Dnieper and have a straight shot through Mykolaiv into Kherson or Kherson, Mykolaiv, and threaten Odessa, which some Putin just said, hey, we're going to do if you keep attacking our ships. It's over for the Ukrainians. They have nothing left. Brigades are the size of a battalion's the size of a company's the size of a squad. I mean, instead of having 5,000 men, now they're going to have 250, and that's it. They can't rotate anybody in because everybody's dead. There's nobody left. There's nothing left. And this is the reality. Every day, you're just seeing more and more collapse. There's no good news for the Ukrainians. It's all bad news. Politically, Zelensky's on his last legs. This corruption scandal, and you got to ask yourself who promoted this. Where did it come from? The United States. We know Ukraine is corrupt. I mean, it's amazing how people are saying, oh, this is all good for Ukrainian democracy. See, only a real democracy would expose the corruption. Are you kidding me? Are you high? Ukraine's been corrupt since the very beginning, and we are knee deep into corruption. This was so bad that Congress, Rand Paul, you remember in 2022, saying we need an inspector general. They were giving them all this money. Who's accounting for it? And Congress going, we don't want to know anything, man. Just give it to them. Why? Oh, the kickbacks. Oh, yeah, the kickbacks. Everything, the money, the corruption, the whole thing. Well, we were knee deep in that. We controlled it. We allowed it. We understood that Zelensky only governs because the money we give him, he uses to create constituencies and power structures. The Rada, people only go to the Rada, their parliament, because of the contracts that Zelensky can then give them. If you're on his side, you get a contract. And a contract doesn't mean you actually do anything. A contract means you get money. Hey, you have a contract. Here's some money. No one's going to hold you accountable if you didn't do it. Hey, you got a contract, a $1 billion contract to dig trenches and build fortifications behind the Pokrovsk line. And here's your $1 billion. And now the Russians have broken through and people are going, hey, where's the trenches? I never got around to building them because I was too busy buying my mistress a diamond necklace and got myself a nice Porsche, and I got a Miami condo. Oh, you wanted me to dig a trench? That didn't happen. This is Ukraine. And now what we're doing is we're bringing them down. We brought down Yermak, who is, if you know anything about how the Ukrainian politics work, you have the president, and then you have the office of the presidential administration. And most people think that means that this person works for the president. No, it's totally separate. And it has its own little power structure, and Yermak puts pressure on Zelensky and all this stuff. Well, Yermak got a little too big, a little too cocky. Down, he's out. Zelensky's been waiting. They have Zelensky on audio tape, apparently, divvying up the goods. America has it, and Zelensky knows. He's been told, we got you. We can kill you anytime we want. If we publish this tape, you won't walk out of Bankova alive. They'll kill you. So you got to play ball. And he's a confused little puppy right now. He's going around to Europe talking to Europeans. Nobody cares. In America, that delegation didn't stop in Europe to touch base. Rubio's not going to the NATO summit. Nobody cares. It's finished. The European experiment is done. It's purely an American-driven operation. It's not about getting us ceasefire. What it does, it's about is shaping the conditions for a post-conflict relationship between the United States and Russia. And that's what is happening with Kirill Dmitriev and Steve Witkoff, with Ushakov and Kushner. This is about creating the political environment, that's Kushner and Ushakov, for the economic relationship, Dmitriev and Witkoff. And Trump has bought into this. And I guess Trump has decided that the best way to overcome the political opposition is just to cut them all out. Keith Kellogg's been fired. Rubio, Trump falls asleep when Rubio talked about Ukraine because it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. In Europe, nobody listens to Europe. Nobody cares. They're not invited to anything. And this is where we're at right now. And it's the best option, to be honest, because the only way this war ends is when Russia decides this war is over. That means Russia has to achieve all of its objectives. And it appears that Trump right now is saying, we're not going to put any meaningful obstacles in the way of you achieving this. What we will do is work with the Ukrainians and the Europeans, to the extent that Europe wants to work, on on trying to get them to skip the dying part and go straight to the surrender part. But if they don't want to, you won't recognize the battlefield soon. I mean, we're talking about just major collapses ready to occur. Scott, you've been saying this for some time. Yeah, and I've been damn right, dead on the money. The only thing I haven't been right about is the timing, because I'm not in control of the timing. But military math, which I've been talking about for many years now, is exactly what's happening here. The algorithm of, attrition. And Russia has worn the Ukrainians down to the point now where there is no military capacity to sustain this fight in an organized, cohesive fashion. Russia, meanwhile, builds up reserves, army. The Ukrainians say the Russians just have overwhelming numerical superiority everywhere, and they are unable to put up any meaningful resistance at this point in time. Economically, there is no Ukrainian economy. They're begging Europe to steal $160 billion of Russian frozen assets to keep the Ukrainian economy going. There is no money. Ukrainian economy produces nothing. It can only exist on, it's funny, you got the Rada now talking about passing a budget. A budget for what? It's not, normally when you pass a budget, you say, how much tax income but Ukraine's so corrupt, there is no tax income. It goes in the pockets of people. They need $160 billion for this budget, and it doesn't exist. Belgium's finally gotten smart. Maybe the United States got a hold of them, but and said, we're not letting you do this assets because that'll destroy our $1 trillion venture. Belgium sits at the midst of this consortium of resources, assets belonging to nation states that are used to facilitate trade. And the whole idea is that if nations deposit this money, that it's protected. It's there to facilitate trade. And if suddenly you steal Russia's assets, every nation there now will say, well, you steal Russia, you can steal ours. What happens when you don't like what we're doing? You're going to take our money, and that's the end of it. And for Belgium, that would bring about the collapse of their economy and the European economy and the United States as well. We couldn't recover from this. So politely, Europe's been told to pound sand. It just isn't going to happen. So now the Ukrainian economy is going to collapse, or is collapsed. Their energy, Russia's taken them out. They played a game. They tried to attack Russia's energy infrastructure, and they lost. It's a gamble, and they lost. Russia today, yeah, a little bit of belt tightening, but they're okay. Ukraine, not okay. And now it leads to the political collapse, which is being accelerated by this corruption investigation, which apparently is being done at the behest of the United States. We have to be a little careful how we do this because we ain't clean either. But I think what we're looking right now is the organized collapse, and it's very clever. I mean, you have to give Trump and Putin a little bit of credit here, because what's being done is, for instance, none of the existing political structures will survive this war. Even the Rada, the Ukrainian parliament, will be collapsed and restructured in a way that's conducive to Russia's long-term goals and objectives, which are to basically take control of Ukraine politically when this war is done. There will be elections, and Russia's going to win these elections. Zelensky can sit there and have his wet dream fantasies about continuing the war and NATO membership. It doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. He's out. He's a Banderist. He'll be killed or exiled. It's the end of the Banderist faction. They're all going to die. And Russia right now has a whole bunch of people that are waiting in the wings who are going to come in and win the elections. And then, the other thing that came out of the Moscow meeting, interesting concepts, Ukraine, the various issues will be resolved through referendum and voting. Voting is referendum. The Ukrainians may lose Odessa and Mykolaiv through these referendum. Russia will be in control. And this is the reality. Ukraine screwed up. They should have taken Putin's deal made in June. You'd have a sovereign Ukraine then. But Putin put the warning out. If you don't do this, this is the best deal you're going to get, and this is the last time you're going to get it. Well, fool around, find out. And Ukraine right now is finding out the hard lesson. They fooled with the wrong people, and they've lost this war. And it's going to be a decisive Russian victory. And Donald Trump is smart enough to understand that if you want to avoid, a decade-long entanglement that's going to bankrupt everybody and get you nowhere except closer to nuclear war, you have to accept the inevitability of a Russian victory, which he apparently has done. And now he's preparing for a peace that'll position the United States to emerge stronger, both politically and economically.